Interesting. I didn't realize it was so far north. Oh my gosh. That's actually really interesting. Okay. That's exactly what I just said. I feel like I'm one step ahead of this. What is up? Welcome back. Today we're reacting to a video titled Why Norway is Edging Closer to the EU. I recently learned that Norway is not part of the EU, and I just didn't know. I'm not gonna lie. What's up? If you haven't met me yet, my name is Aaron, and this is Aaron Arnold Reacts. Through this channel, I'm discovering everything about Europe, Norway included, the people, the culture, and this video, some of the news about the EU. The goal of this channel is to laugh together, to learn together, and to have fun together. I post videos every single day, so make sure you hit like and subscribe so you can see another video just like this in the future. But now let's get into why Norway might join the EU. Let's go.
Over the past few years, Norway has pursued closer alignment with the EU. In May 2024, it signed a security and defence partnership with the EU. Last month, the EU's Defence Commissioner suggested that Norway could join the proposed European Defence Union. And just last week, Norway and Iceland became the first two non-EU countries to join the EU's space-based satellite communications initiative,
Interesting.
IRIS², which aims to provide a European alternative to Elon Musk's Starlink.
Interesting. Okay. So they are joining in some way already.
At the same time, public support for Norway joining the EU has ticked up, with between 35 and 40% of voters supporting EU membership.
Okay, let me ask my Norwegian friends. Do you support EU membership? Yes or no?
And in March, the leader of Norway's opposition pro-EU Conservative Party argued that Norway should join the EU, saying, "In my opinion, and in my party's opinion, we will be best served by being full members of the EU." So in this video, we'll explain Norway's current relationship with the EU, and why Norway is aligning more closely with the bloc.
Let's go.
Let's start with some background on Norway-EU relations. While not an EU member, Norway...
Okay, let me just preface this by saying I don't know anything about Norway and the EU's relationship. I know nothing. I do know Norway has a lot of oil, so I know that's very attractive to the EU and to the world, but we're going to see.
It is a founding member of the European Free Trade Association, which participates in the EU single market and Schengen area, and has been a member of the European Economic Area, or EEA, since 1994. Norway's government has actually tried to join the EU or its predecessors 4 times, in 1962, 1967, 1972, and 1994, with the attempts either blocked or turned down at a referendum.
Whoa. Norway has been denied joining the EU. See, that's something that's very interesting because I can't imagine why they would have denied Norway, to be honest. Like, they're full of natural resources. Maybe they just didn't know that at the time. I don't know. I don't understand this.
At a referendum. For instance, Norway's accession to the EEA in 1994 was widely seen as a stepping stone towards full EU membership, but a referendum on joining the EU was narrowly defeated, with 48% of people voting in favour and 52% against. Over the past 3 decades, however, Norway has become increasingly integrated into the EU's broader framework and initiatives. It now incorporates the vast majority of EU rules in EEA-related sectors, other than agriculture and fisheries, and is fully integrated in terms of the free movement of goods, services, capital, and labour in the Schengen area. Moreover, Norway has voluntarily aligned itself with the EU standards through a series of additional agreements, often mirroring the policy developments of its Nordic neighbours, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark.
Wait a second. Okay, that's actually really interesting. So basically, the economy is flowing the same way as the EU, or it's already aligned. So what ways is Norway not aligned with the EU? I think that's the question that I would want to answer in this, because it seems like in most ways they already are aligned.
Nevertheless, Norwegians have remained divided on the issue of EU membership. After the 2008 Eurozone crisis, public support for joining the EU plummeted and opposition increased, both because the EU was beset by infighting and because the EU economy was struggling. However, in the mid-2010s, support for joining the EU slowly began rising and spiked to a 2-decade high in 2022 after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. According to a February 2026 opinion poll for ABC News, opposition to joining the EU in Norway has now fallen below 50% for the first time, at 48%, while support for joining has ticked up to 38%, about the same as a year ago.
Wow.
Alongside this uptick in public support in the past few years, Norway's centre-left government has made numerous moves to align more closely with the EU. In May 2024, it signed a defense and security partnership with Europe. In May
Okay.
2025, it signed a joint statement with the EU on strengthening EEA foreign and security policy cooperation, and more recently, last month, signed a participation agreement for the EU's Irish-Squared joint satellite program.
Wow, okay.
Through this series of deals, Norway can maintain formal sovereignty and the truce between its pro-EU and anti-EU political blocs, with the EEA membership model serving as a compromise between full membership and non-membership. Essentially, though, there are three reasons why Norway
Wait, real quick. Sorry. This town is beautiful. Oh, is this? Where is this? Where is this? I don't know. This is really stunning. I'd love to know which city this is.
aligning more closely with the EU, despite not having an active accession bid. Firstly, rising public support for joining the EU. Secondly, Trump's impact on European and Arctic security. And thirdly, the general trend towards deeper European integration. Let's start with the first reason, though, that Norway is aligning more closely with the EU because of rising public support.
Okay.
Generally, EU membership has been a thorny issue in Norwegian politics, with the centre-right Conservatives being largely pro-EU, the centre-left Labour
Interesting. Okay. So the Conservatives want to join the EU.
Party divided, and various smaller parties either being fiercely pro or anti-EU. In March, the new leader of Norway's Conservatives argued that Norway should join the EU, adding, "I've been talking consistently about the need for a constructive debate based on the EU as it is today, not as it was in 1994, and saying very clearly and loudly that Norway should join." This echoes calls made by her predecessor, who told the Financial Times last year, "We are by definition in favour of EU membership. If there comes a window to apply, we will apply."
Okay. If there comes a window to apply, why would the EU not extend a membership invite to Norway? I think that's the one question that I just don't understand. Like, in my opinion, the EU would be way better off having Norway, especially in terms of natural resources. And I imagine that's also why a lot of Norwegians don't want to join. I also know that, like, the, what's it called? Endowment or whatever. I don't know how you call it. I don't know what it's called. But anyways, the money collected for the people, if it was divided among all the people in Norway, it'd be like 200,000 per person. And I wonder, it's like $2 trillion. And I wonder if that money would go towards the EU and away from the people. Maybe that's why people are against it. I'm not sure.
For now, the Labour government are reluctant to open up a formal debate and are instead closely watching Iceland, the other non-EU Nordic country which has promised an EU referendum by 2027. The second reason is US President Donald Trump's impact on Europe. Early this year, the White House suggested that using the military to seize Greenland was, quote, always an option, sparking fears in Europe about America's policy towards the Arctic. This is of particular significance.
I think on top of this, obviously America now, since this video is involved in the Middle East, so it's probably even a bit crazier in Norway, the thought process at least, compared to what it used to be.
Significance to Norway, with nearly half of Norway's territory in the Arctic, and also follows Russian threats made last year, when it accused Norway of militarizing.
Oh, Svalbard. I didn't realize it was so far north. Oh my gosh. Wow, okay.
Svalbard, a sparsely populated Norwegian archipelago, nearly 1,000 kilometers from Norway's northernmost city, creating a potential pretext for military action. As such, Norway is working much more closely with the EU on Arctic security, and in March, the Norwegian Prime Minister hosted a summit in Oslo attended by the leaders of the 4 other Nordic nations, EU members Denmark, Sweden and Finland, plus fellow EFTA member Iceland, as well as Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney. A month later, Oslo also hosted an EU-Norway security dialogue, with the first ever EU-Norway Arctic dialogue also set to be held this spring.
Okay. So the Nordics are aligning, and that makes sense. I've actually watched some videos about the Nordic militaries aligning also, which is really interesting. If you haven't seen those videos, check them out because they're really fascinating. But the Nordics are creating this like superpower within Europe, which is just the coolest thing to me.
The third reason for Norway's closer alignment with the EU is the general push for deeper European integration, particularly on defence. In this unstable world, the EU is trying to make itself into a geopolitical power and is trying to fold like-minded non-EU countries like Ukraine, Norway and the UK into its orbit.
Wait a second. I had no idea that Ukraine wasn't a part of the EU, because all I know is that the EU has been really supporting and funding Ukraine throughout the entire Russia-Ukraine war. but I didn't know Ukraine wasn't a part of the EU. That's actually really interesting. Okay, interesting.
For instance, last month, the EU's Defence Commissioner suggested Norway could join the proposed European Defence Union, and a recent EU statement said, "We commended the increasing cooperation between the EU and Norway on military mobility."
Wow, okay.
The EU clearly hopes that Norway, with its massive sovereign wealth fund, will be able to inject...
That's what it's called, the Massive Sovereign Wealth Fund. It's not called the Massive, it's called the Sovereign Wealth Fund. I know now it's around $2 trillion, which is just nuts. And I think that's why Norwegians don't want to join the EU, because he's about to say that's going to go towards the EU and they're going to use that money however they want, which includes funding. I know they've been really funding Ukraine. I don't know what that looks like these days, but basically the Norwegian Sovereignty Fund would go, a lot of it would probably go to fund Ukraine and continue this war.
Inject some financial firepower into the bloc's defense efforts. There was even some speculation in December that Norway could back a loan guarantee for Ukraine.
That's exactly what I just said. I feel like I'm one step ahead of
Amid
this.
stalled talks on using frozen Russian assets, but Norway's finance minister firmly dismissed this, saying, "I have seen speculation suggesting that Norway could use our sovereign wealth fund as a guarantor for such a loan. This is not an option."
Yeah, that would be really against the Norwegian people. I don't imagine any Norwegian, I mean, maybe Norwegian people are for that, but I don't know. I think, yeah.
Ultimately, because Norway already aligns with most EU legislation as an EEA member, apart from the politically sensitive areas like fishing, even if there is a growing number of Norwegians who support joining the EU, the status quo does seem to be working fine for Norway. So we shouldn't necessarily expect a Norwegian EU membership bid just yet.
Insane video. I feel like I learned so much, and I think the still the takeaways for me would be, why would the EU not want Norway to join? From my perspective, the EU would be unbelievably beneficial from having the EU would benefit so heavily from having Norway join. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised that Norwegians are, I guess, really for joining the EU, especially since they already have so many pacts. You know, they already have a military pact, they have free trade with the EU, they have the Schengen agreements. Like, they have all these agreements already. I don't know what the extra benefit for Norway would be really to join, but clearly it seems that some of the leaders want that to happen, and a lot of the people. So if you're Norwegian and if you're watching this video, what are your takeaways? What are your thoughts? Has something been updated in this video since it is coming out? Since what he's saying? Yeah, I'm really interested, and this is quite fascinating to me, to be honest. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see another one just like this, make sure you hit like and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel even more, check out my links down below. And I got to give the shout out to my channel members. Thank you so much for being a channel member. It means the world to me that you are joining me on this journey. I can't wait to keep bringing you exclusive content and just including you more in the scope and in this journey. So thank you so much again. I hope to see all of you in the very next video. Cheers.